Hi, welcome back to another episode of Dave's Desk looking at the Bible basics. In our last video we looked at the book of Genesis and today we're looking at the book of Exodus, the book of departures, or as it is in Hebrew it's called These Are the Names Of, which seems like a strange name for a book, but it's called that because those are the first words of the book. And they echo the final words of the book of Genesis. It's to help us to understand that the first 5 books that we're going to look at in this first week of videos are all derived from that same place. So all understood that the teaching in them comes from Moses, that they all date from that middle 15th century BC, and therefore we see the literary links between them. And so the book of Exodus picks up the story where the book of Genesis leaves off, with the people of God, Abraham's descendants, entered into Egypt, and we're told that a pharaoh, a king, rose up in Egypt who didn't know who the Hebrews were, didn't understand what they'd done for Egypt, and therefore grew fearful of them, grew upset with them, prejudiced against them, and started persecuting them. And then through the book of Exodus, God reveals himself step by step to his people. He reveals what he's like. He reveals his name. He reveals his law. He reveals, to begin with, how he is to be worshipped. He reveals his covenant with them, or makes his first covenants with the people of Israel. And after the Sinai covenant, the priesthood is instigated, and so worship can fully begin. And through these revelations, we learn a huge amount about who God is. We learn that God's name for himself is I Am, and that God is present with his people. We learn the attributes of God, what he's like, that he is just, that he is truthful, that he is merciful and faithful and holy. He's not like the other gods. He is everything that we would ever hope for the creator of humanity to be like. He's faithful to the promises he made to Abraham hundreds of years before. He's heard the cry of Abraham's people, his people, and so he's come to be with them and to rescue them. And in the Passover we see this full sort of image of who God is in relation to his people. And in the Gospel of John, Jesus is called the Lamb who was slain. He is the Passover lamb, and in that moment of Passover where the lamb is killed and its blood daubed on the doors, and the angel of death passes over the Israelite families. And so we see the way in which God will save his people through the death of someone who's utterly innocent, that they face the judgment that otherwise, or that the sacrifice takes upon the judgment that the people deserve. And so God dwells and tabernacles with his people. As the story of Exodus comes to an end, there's a huge amount of detail about how to build this tent of meeting that allows God to be present in the midst of his people. And so the book of Exodus takes us from the people of God subjugated and enslaved to the people of God worshipping and free. And that is God's desire for all of us, to be taken from slavery to sin to freedom to worship. Well, I hope that's given you something to think about today. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for joining me. Goodbye.